right now, John McMullen, who was at the Eagles NovaCare Center today, where they had their first practice, John, to get ready for this Browns team. We'll dive into the Browns in a second. I know you got a piece up at 97.3ESPN.com on Robert Griffin III. I want to get first your take on Carson Wentz and the amount of offense that they have in there for him this week. Should we anticipate that he is up to speed on everything? I mean, if Bradford was playing, are they in the same boat right now?
Well, first off, I want to. I was enjoying your blasting of the entire science of meteorology.
That happens all the time.
Probably the same guy that's still rubbing dirt on a broken leg. But yeah, according to the Eagles, yeah, the whole playbook is on the plate. Now, I don't believe them for 1 second. I think it's going to be a dramatically scaled down system for a guy who was going to be the third-string quarterback a couple days ago. Remember, 8 days out from the start of the season, Carson Wentz was still in bubble wrap. He was not going to see another rep for the entire year if everything went according to plan. And now all of a sudden the Eagles are telling you, oh, he's ready to handle the whole offense. It's going to be the same as it was with Sam. So take that with a grain of salt. As I said, I think it's going to be very, very scaled back, and understandably so for any rookie quarterback, not just Carson Wentz.
Yeah, obviously here's what I've been kind of asking listeners throughout the day, John, is this team won 7 games last year. Did they have 7-win talent, or was it poor coaching, poorly run front office, team didn't really play hard for coach? What would you surmise that was a 7-win team last year?
I think it was a lot of different things. I think it was a poorly run organization. I think it was poor coaching, poor front office. The offensive talent was probably a 7-win team. Interestingly, the defensive talent probably a little better than that. And I know that doesn't make sense considering where they ended up. But as I always point out, when you look at Bill Davis's defense and we look at it sort of from a micro standpoint, each individual player, not each, but a lot of them played well, whether you're talking about Fletcher Cox, Benny Logan, Malcolm Jenkins, Jordan Hicks when he was out there, Nolan Carroll, even Eric Rowe late in the season. I think a lot of people were excited by the way he played. So when you looked at them individually, they all performed up to the level they were expected to perform at. But because of the system they ran, because they were constantly on the football field, the results statistically weren't the way you wanted. So I think it was a lot of things, but the 3 I would point to is certainly they made a lot of bad moves in the front office. Chip Kelly was a novice at that. I think people caught up to him as far as what he wanted to do with tempo. And he didn't adapt to that. And I think they got rid of too much offensive talent. We've been through that ad nauseum, but they didn't replace LaShawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, players like that.
Then I want your opinion on this, because you just said something that kind of was in my wheelhouse. I agree with you. Defensively, they were pretty good for 8 to 10 weeks the last 2 years, but fell apart down the stretch. Do they have better talent on this defense? And will this defense be better than the last 2 defenses for, number 1, better talent, better scheme, and for number 2, they won't be on the field as much?
Well, that number 2 is the main reason. And plus, yeah, they have a better defensive coordinator, better scheme. So statistically, they're going to be much better. A lot of the talent was already there. There isn't a lot of change. The entire front, the guys you're counting on, Fletcher Cox, Benny Logan, Vinny Curry, Brandon Graham, Connor Barwin, they were all there. Jordan Hicks, Michael Kendricks, they were there. You have additions at the cornerback slot with Leotis McKelvin and Ron Brooks, and also at safety, Rodney McLeod. But the vast majority of this group was in place, and as I said, individually, they each performed pretty well. but because of the system, because of how much they were on the football field, it hurt them. And it will be different this year because the Eagles have to be different. They were going to be different anyway, but then when you add into the equation the rookie quarterback, well, you have to rely on your defense. You have to rely on your special teams, and that's what the Eagles are going to do.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com, covers the Eagles, and, of course, follow him at JF McMullen on Twitter. Anything going to happen roster-wise? I hear Wisniewski's name, also Josh Andrews. We heard yesterday if they would have got Klein, they would have tried. It seems like they're hell-bent on moving an offensive lineman here. Is that Howie just wanting more picks?
Well, Howie likes to trade.
Is it Howie or Henke? Is it Howie or Henke? Which one is it?
Well, you remember he was gone for a year, and this was his first love. This is what he always wanted to do as far as getting involved with professional football. And he had the job, and then he lost it. And that was tough for Howie. And the fact that he was away for a year, you can tell. The vast majority of his moves, I think, were good. So it's not like I'm criticizing him on each individual move. In fact, Mike, I've been supportive of most of them. But while I say that, look, the best way to have long-term success in the NFL is continuity. And continuity doesn't mean you're trading a bunch of guys every off-season. Now, hopefully, as Howie gets more entrenched, he'll understand that. He'll get his core group that he wants, and it'll stop. But as we go today, I mean, they just finalized the Eric Rowe trade this morning. I mean, this is in flux because this is a team, obviously, especially the back end of the roster, is not all that talented. So I think they're going to see a lot of churning throughout the year.
John, two things. One, update us on the Rowe deal. What's the final part of that deal? And two, what did Peterson say today as to why Rowe did not fit here?
Well, it's a fourth-round pick. It's a conditional fourth-round pick. It can move up to a third-round pick if he plays 50% of the play, 50% of the defensive snaps for the Patriots. So there's a possibility it moves up to a third-round pick, and I think from the Eagles' standpoint, their mentality, he wasn't in their plans. He was the fifth corner as they got ready to start the season, and that's a guy who's not going to play a whole heck of a lot unless there's injuries. So from that standpoint, it makes sense. But the more I think about this, the more I question it because I think Eric Rowe is a talented kid. He didn't necessarily fit all that well into what Jim Schwartz likes because he likes more press coverage. And Rowe, despite his size, is considered more of a zone corner. But, he was in his second year. And as I said, he showed some signs late last season of being able to develop. And I don't think you give up on somebody that quickly. And I look at this cornerback group as a whole, and I think on the defense that we just talked about, and I think it is going to be much improved. But if there's one position group that I have questions over, it's cornerback. When Leotis McKelvin is your best corner, that's not that great. And I think Nolan Carroll's better than people think. I think Ron Brooks is better than people think. But they're not great cornerbacks. And I think if you just look at skill set and measurables and size and speed and everything like that, Eric Rowe was the most talented corner on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now you got to get him up to speed. He wasn't ready to play. But that you can say that about a lot of young players. They're doing the same thing with Nelson Aguilar. They didn't pull the plug on him, and he's performed a heck of a lot more poorly than Eric Rowe did when he got his opportunity. So the more I think about this, the more I question it. And I kind of shook my head at Doug today at his press conference. He said something, and he didn't do it out of hubris, but it in hindsight, it was kind of comical. And basically what he said is we traded him to give him the opportunity to play. And they traded him, obviously, to the New England Patriots, who are one of the best teams in football. And if he has an opportunity to play in New England, and I think he does, he damn well should have an opportunity to play in Philadelphia.
I agree. And then, of course, the second layer of that is why you had a second-round pick who maybe was struggling. You wouldn't have said, you know what, this guy was a safety. Let's see if he can help us and move him over there. I mean, they didn't even consider it seems like.
Yeah, that's true. I talked to some people. They didn't see him as a safety at all. So despite his history at Utah, where he did play more safety than corner, they considered him strictly a corner, didn't think he had what it takes to move back to safety. And as some remember also, the Eagles, contrary to the cornerback position, the Eagles have really good safeties. So he's not going to go to safety and beat out Malcolm Jenkins or Rodney McLeod. So he wasn't going to play there either for people speculating of that nature. Perhaps he could have helped in the depth fashion, but that's not what you want as a second-round pick. Any team wants their second-round pick to develop into a starter. And I'm a little worried. Obviously, the Patriots have a history of taking players out of other organizations and getting more out of them. You remember Patrick Chung. They had him first. He came to Philadelphia. He was awful here. He goes back to New England. He turns into a Pro Bowl player. They just traded for Barkevious Mingo before they traded for Eric Rowe. They just have a history of doing this, and I fear they're going to be able to do it again with Eric Rowe.
I think the same thing, and I'm interested to see, as you just said, because Doug said, we want to give him a chance to play. Well, if he gets on the field in New England, you're telling me he wasn't good enough to play here, something you just said, and I echo, that makes me scratch my head. Now, do you think they got good value back in return for a guy that wasn't in their plans? I guess you look at it that way, and you can't, I can't look at Sam Bradford going to Minnesota if he's a Pro Bowler and saying, man, if they would have kept him, because it's different offenses and you never know. But you look at a talent like Rowe and that you just gave up on him, I do have to question that a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and that's why I said it. I mean, just the nature of it. And I do have a lot of respect for Jim Schwartz and his knowledge of defensive football, and that I sort of give him the benefit of the doubt more than I don't. But in this particular situation, at a position where they don't have a ton of talent, to give up on a kid like that just because he wasn't ready to play immediately in a new defensive scheme, I do think is a bit of a mistake. And we'll see how it shakes out. But as I said, that quote is going to come back to haunt Doug, I think, because you can't say, as the coach of this Philadelphia Eagles team, that we wanted to give him an opportunity to play, and that's why we sent him to New England, who basically it's their birthright to win 12 games, and I'll probably win 12 games again, even though Tom Brady's not going to be there for a month. That's how good that organization is. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to say something like that where you are as an organization.
John McMullen's with us here, 97.3 ESPN.com, covers the Eagles. Today's Pigskin.com, he covers the league nationally. Couple things real fast. Lane Johnson, he's going to play, right? There's no. They're not going to at this stage of the week, right?
We're Wednesday of game week. There's no way, even if it comes down tonight, he's going to play on Sunday. So, and then we just see how long it goes, because.
Well, if he plays Monday, if he plays this week, which he is, does that almost say he'll be there for 4 weeks because of the appeals process?
Well, not necessarily, because Lane he's not been as concrete on the appeal. Originally, he said he put his foot down and said, I'm going to appeal, no questions asked. But recently, he's kind of hedged on that. And you can only speculate as to why. I think, and I kind of mentioned it on yesterday's show, I think part of it had to do with the way things were shaken out, the Romo injury in Dallas, the Bridgewater injury in Minnesota. All of a sudden, this team with Sam Bradford looked like, hey, maybe they could win a bad division, and maybe they can make a playoff run. And I thought maybe Lane was thinking that way, and it was better to be suspended early, get it over with, and be back for the stretch run. So I think things have shifted with Carson Wentz, despite the fact that everyone says they expect to do the same with or without Sam Bradford. You have to do it if you're a player. I understand it. You have to say that if you're a coach. But in the back of your mind, you kind of understand you're no longer a contender unless he catches lightning in a bottle. And that might have some effect on Lane's decision-making as far as an appeal goes.
Yeah.
Because he understands if he gets suspended, an appeal is just lessening. He understands he has no chance of winning that appeal.
You wonder, does he hope, much like Gregory, who went from 10 to 4, that he gets a reduction?
Yeah, actually, Gregory didn't go from 10 to 4. That a lot of people misinterpreted that because the cut down to 53 was on Saturday. The Cowboys had to place him on the suspended list. He was suspended for 4 games because he's in the midst of his appeal. So people looked at that and automatically assumed it was downgraded. It wasn't downgraded. The appeal isn't over yet. And when it is over, I expect him to be suspended for 10 games. So I don't think people fully understood that.
Do you think there's a shot for Johnson?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because he doesn't think there's a shot. He
doesn't think there's a shot.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't think. He said, "Hey, there's nothing I can do." He doesn't agree with it. But the policy states you're responsible for what you put in your body. He plans to sue the supplement company. He's very, very upset that the NFLPA has not gotten behind him in this fight. But he has said on more than one occasion that he's going to be suspended, and it's going to be for 10 games. So if he doesn't have much confidence, I can't have much confidence in that being lowered. Although the one caveat I'll put on that is the longer it takes, something weird is going on here. So who knows? Because one of the frustrating things for coaches, certainly, is the fact that this is a policy that is behind the scenes. There's no real concrete structure to it as far as timetables. And you don't know what's going on. Lane thought the B sample was going to be in 2 weeks, and he said that on August 12th. I went back and checked my notes. August 12th is when he said that. 2 weeks would obviously be August 26th. We're now deep into September. It's still not back. So who knows?
Very interesting. You're right. This whole thing's been bizarre from the beginning, how it got out to begin with, and to where we are today. John McMullen has more on this Eagles game, including his piece on the quarterback they'll face, Robert Griffin III. What are the reports on him? How's his camp been for Cleveland?
Well, Cleveland's not very talented, and obviously Josh Gordon, things change when Josh Gordon gets back after 4 games, but he's not going to be there week 1. Terrell Pryor is one of their starting wide receivers. So I think that kind of tells you where Cleveland is as an organization. Defensively, they might even be worse. So it's going to be difficult for him to try to start the reclamation project on what might be the worst roster in the NFL. But it's so interesting because there's so many similarities between RG3 and Carson Wentz. They're both taken number 2 overall. Teams traded a heck of a lot to get there, to take them. And he was expected to be the face of the franchise in Washington, but obviously it didn't work out. Well, what I wrote about today, Mike, I think people forget, he had one of the greatest rookie seasons of any quarterback in NFL history. He was phenomenal. Won 7 straight games down the stretch as the Redskins won the NFC East, threw for 3,200 yards, only 5 interceptions. You throw on top 800-plus rushing yards on that. He was on line to be a superstar, and then he tore his ACL and his LCL in the playoffs, and he was never the same. And I think if Carson Wentz could even be one half of that, of what RG3 was in his rookie year, people would be thrilled.
All right, John, we'll have plenty more tomorrow, and we'll do our picks on Friday, taking a look at this season, and we'll see where you stand as the Eagles get ready for Cleveland on Sunday. Thanks, pal.
Hey, thanks, Mike.